At the most exclusive party in 1960s, Paris, Brigitte Bardot made Sammy Davis Jr. an offer that would have destroyed his marriage and career. His five-word response made her respect him more than any man she'd ever met. "I'm already with someone wonderful." It was October 15, 1965, and the Hotel George Vive in Paris was hosting the most exclusive party of the year. The occasion was the premiere of Viva Maria, Brigitte Bardot's latest film, and the guest list read like a who's who of international celebrities, European aristocracy, and Hollywood royalty who had flown in just for the event. Sammy Davis Jr. was in Paris as part of a European tour, performing at the Olympia Theater to sold-out crowds who appreciated his artistry in ways that sometimes eluded American audiences. Europe had always been kinder to Black American entertainers, offering a sophistication and cultural appreciation that provided a welcome respite from the racial tensions back home. The party at the George Vive was legendary even before it began. The hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a glittering wonderland of crystal chandeliers, cascading flowers, and the kind of old-world elegance that only Paris could provide. The champagne was Dom Perignon 1955, the caviar was Beluga from the Caspian Sea, and the guest list included everyone from European film directors to American movie stars to members of actual royalty. But the undisputed center of attention was Brigitte Bardot herself. In 1965, Brigitte was more than just a movie star. She was a global phenomenon. At 31, she had become the international symbol of beauty, sensuality, and feminine power. Her films had made her famous, but her personal life had made her legendary. She was the woman who could make strong men weak, who could stop conversations with her entrance, who had been pursued by some of the most powerful and wealthy men in the world. What made Brigitte particularly fascinating was her complete awareness of her effect on men, and her sophisticated ability to use that power. She wasn't naive about her beauty or its impact. She was a French intellectual who had been born into a comfortable middle-class family, educated at the best schools, and who had transformed herself into an international icon through a combination of natural gifts and strategic intelligence. She had been married and divorced, had conducted highly publicized affairs with co-stars and directors, and had developed a reputation as someone who took what she wanted without apology or explanation. In an era when women were expected to be modest about their desires, Brigitte was refreshingly direct. Sammy arrived at the party with his usual impeccable style. Even in a room full of international celebrities, he commanded attention. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his grooming was flawless, and he carried himself with the confident bearing of someone who had earned his place among the world's elite entertainers. But Sammy was also carrying something else that night, the knowledge that his personal life was under constant scrutiny. 2 years earlier, he had married May Britt, a Swedish actress, and their interracial marriage had caused a scandal that was still reverberating through both American society and the entertainment industry. The marriage had cost Sammy work, friendships, and social acceptance in many circles. He had received death threats, been banned from certain venues, and faced constant criticism from both Black and white communities who disapproved of his choice. But he loved May deeply, and their relationship had become a source of strength that sustained him through professional and personal challenges. The party was in full swing when Brigitte noticed Sammy across the crowded ballroom. She had heard of him. Of course, his reputation as an entertainer had reached Europe, and she was aware of the controversy surrounding his marriage. But she had never met him personally, and she was curious about the man who had generated so much attention both professionally and personally. Unlike most men at the party, Sammy wasn't staring at her. He was engaged in conversation with a group that included French film director François Truffaut, discussing the artistic differences between European and American cinema. His French was fluent, his observations were intelligent, and he seemed genuinely interested in the conversation rather than using it as an excuse to position himself near her. This intrigued Brigitte. She was used to men who maneuvered to be close to her, who found reasons to interrupt her conversations, who made their interest obvious and immediate. Sammy's apparent indifference was unusual enough to capture her attention. As the evening progressed, Brigitte found herself watching Sammy more closely. He moved through the party with ease, comfortable with French intellectuals, European aristocrats, and American movie stars alike. He was charming without being obsequious, confident without being arrogant, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy the conversations he was having, rather than using them as networking opportunities. When he did speak to her, which happened naturally during a larger group conversation about the differences between French and American entertainment, he treated her as an equal participant in an intellectual discussion rather than as an object to be admired or conquered. He asked her about her thoughts on the French New Wave movement, referenced her early films with knowledge and appreciation, and seemed genuinely interested in her opinions about the evolution of European cinema. This was a new experience for Brigitte. Most men, when they spoke to her about her work, were either patronizing, explaining things she already knew, or obsequious, praising everything without discrimination. Sammy spoke to her as one professional artist to another, with respect for her intelligence and genuine curiosity about her perspectives. As the party continued into the early morning hours, the crowd began to thin. Many of the older guests and industry executives had departed, leaving behind a core group of younger celebrities, artists, and social figures who were known for extending these gatherings until dawn. The atmosphere became more intimate, more relaxed, conversations became deeper, champagne flowed more freely, and the formal structure of the early evening gave way to the kind of spontaneous connections that made these gatherings legendary. It was during this more intimate phase of the evening that Brigitte made her move. She found Sammy on one of the hotel's private terraces, taking a break from the party and enjoying the view of Paris at night. The Eiffel Tower was visible in the distance. The Seine reflected the city's lights, and the autumn air was crisp and invigorating. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Brigitte said, joining him at the terrace railing. She had changed from her formal evening gown into something more casual but no less stunning, a silk blouse that caught the moonlight and a skirt that moved gracefully in the gentle breeze. "It really is," Sammy agreed. "I've performed in a lot of cities, but Paris has something special. Maybe it's the way history and beauty seem to live together here." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out at the city. Then Brigitte turned to face him directly. "Sammy," she said, her voice taking on a tone that was both intimate and direct, "I have a confession to make. When I first saw you tonight, I expected you to be like most American entertainers I've met, talented but unsophisticated, successful but crude. You've surprised me." "I'm glad," Sammy replied with a smile. "I like surprising people, keeps things interesting." "You're very different from what I expected," Brigitte continued. "You're intelligent, cultured, genuinely interesting to talk to, and you're also very attractive." The compliment was delivered with the kind of directness that Brigitte was famous for. She didn't flirt or hint. She stated her interest clearly and waited to see how he would respond. "That's very flattering, Brigitte. You're an incredibly beautiful and fascinating woman. Any man would be honored by your attention. But you're not like most men, are you?" Brigitte moved closer, her hand touching his arm lightly. "I've been watching you all evening. You're not trying to impress me. You're not competing for my attention. You're not playing the games that most men play." "I suppose I'm not," Sammy said quietly. "I find that very attractive," Brigitte said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you know what I'm saying, Sammy?" The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and tension. The offer was clear without being explicitly stated. Brigitte Bardot, the most desired woman in the world, was making herself available to him. All he had to do was say yes. In that moment, Sammy thought about everything that had brought him to this terrace in Paris, his career, his struggles, his triumphs, and most importantly, his marriage to May. He thought about the woman waiting for him back in their hotel room, the woman who had stood by him through controversy and criticism, who had faced social ostracism because she loved him. He thought about the kind of man he wanted to be, the kind of husband he had promised to be, and the kind of example he wanted to set for other men who might face similar temptations. When he spoke, his voice was gentle, but absolutely certain. "I'm already with someone wonderful." 5 words. Simple, direct, and completely final. Brigitte stepped back slightly, her expression changing from seductive to surprised to something deeper, respect. "Your wife," she said. It wasn't a question. "May," Sammy confirmed. "And she really is wonderful. She's intelligent, brave, beautiful, and she chose to be with me, knowing what it would cost her. I could never betray that kind of love." Brigitte was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the moonlight. She had made similar offers to many men over the years, and their responses had varied from eager acceptance to stammering refusal to nervous laughter. But she had never encountered this kind of quiet dignity, this straightforward expression of loyalty and love. "You know," she said finally, "I've met kings and presidents, movie stars and millionaires. Most of them would have said yes to what I just offered, even if they were married, especially if they were married." "Then you've been meeting the wrong men," Sammy replied. "Apparently I have." Brigitte smiled, and for the first time that evening, it wasn't the practiced smile of a movie star or the calculating expression of a seductress. It was the genuine smile of a woman who had discovered something unexpected and valuable. "Tell me about her," Brigitte said, settling onto one of the terrace chairs. "Tell me about May." For the next hour, as Paris slept around them, Sammy told Brigitte about his wife. He talked about May's courage in marrying him despite the social consequences, her intelligence and wit, her strength in facing criticism and threats. He talked about how she had changed his understanding of love, commitment, and what it meant to be truly partnered with another person. Brigitte listened without interruption, occasionally asking questions that revealed both her intelligence and her growing understanding of what Sammy had found in his marriage. She began to see that his refusal of her offer wasn't about rejection or lack of attraction. It was about having something so valuable that nothing else could compete with it. "I envy her," Brigitte said, as the conversation wound down. "Not because she has you, but because she has that kind of love, that kind of certainty and security." "You'll find it too," Sammy said. "When you're ready for it." "Will I? I'm not sure I know how to be the kind of woman who inspires that kind of loyalty." "You're more than capable of it," Sammy assured her. "Tonight proved that. You could have been offended by my refusal, could have made things uncomfortable. Instead, you turned it into a real conversation about real things. That takes character." When they finally rejoined the party, something had shifted between them. The sexual tension was gone, replaced by genuine friendship and mutual respect. They spent the rest of the evening talking about art, travel, the challenges of fame, and their hopes for the future. By the time the party ended, as the sun was rising over Paris, they had developed the kind of friendship that would last for decades. Brigitte would often say, years later, that Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the few men she had ever met who saw her as a complete person rather than just a beautiful woman or a sexual conquest. For Sammy, the evening represented a personal victory that was more meaningful than any professional achievement. He had been tested in a way that could have destroyed everything he valued, and he had chosen love over temptation, commitment over opportunity, integrity over pleasure. When he returned to his hotel room that morning, May was awake, reading a book while waiting for him. "How was the party?" she asked. "Interesting," Sammy said, taking her hand. "But I'm glad to be back with someone wonderful." May smiled, not fully understanding the weight of those words, but hearing the love and certainty in his voice. Years later, when Brigitte Bardot retired from films and became an advocate for animal rights and environmental causes, she would often reference that night in Paris as a turning point in her understanding of what real strength looked like. She had learned that the most powerful men weren't those who took whatever was offered to them, but those who knew the value of what they already had. And Sammy Davis Jr. had shown her that true sophistication wasn't about European culture or intellectual conversation. It was about having the courage to be faithful to your values even when no one would ever know if you weren't. If this incredible story of temptation, loyalty, and the power of choosing love over opportunity inspired you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to remember that real strength is shown, not by what you take, but by what you choose to protect. Have you ever had to choose between temptation and commitment? Let us know in the comments how you handled it. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the moments that define our character when nobody else is watching.